everyone, happy Tuesday. I am here to let you know that the PPP Loan Forgiveness Application has been released by the SBA. It is available on the SBA website. I know a lot of my clients I've been working with and a lot of businesses in general have applied and received PPP funds. And a lot of us are eager, I know, to know how do we apply for forgiveness? How do we turn this loan into just a forgivable loan or a grant that we don't have to pay back, which would be a great thing for businesses. So how do we do this? Well, the application has been released. I post a link below so you can click and link to it. It's directly from the SBA website. It's a PDF file, and it has some clarifications in it, some guidance, some instructions, some updates as well. So let's talk through it and see what's in it. So first, in the guidelines, originally the 8-week time period that you had to pay out those funds for payroll or compensation started when you received the funds. That has made it difficult for many businesses to kind of time it correctly to use up all the funds in the right amount of time, depending on when their payroll falls or when they pay themselves, etc. So this has been clarified and updated. So now, if you didn't receive the money the day before your scheduled payroll period or when you paid yourself, the new guidance allows you to choose the 8-week period that begins on your first payroll date following the loan disbursement. So you get to choose which pay period you're starting that clock on, basically, which is nice. So that's been very helpful. Something else that's in there, this is not a sure thing, this is not defined, but there has been talk of the restaurant, a group of restaurant owners met with President Trump and asked him to extend the 8-week period to 24 weeks to be able to spread out that payroll. He seems receptive to the idea, but nothing's happened, so that's just sort of a rumor at this point. So we don't really know how it's going to play out yet. Next, the $2 million certification. So as reported previously, a few days ago, maybe last week, as many of us know, the safe harbor guideline is in place now, where if you borrowed less than $2 million, you're basically considered certified. You don't have to, likely won't fear an audit or any kind of inspection. So if you borrowed more than $2 million, then you may be audited, or there may be an investigation to certify that you met all the guidelines, that you really truly needed the loan, etc. So in the application, you have to certify whether or not the loan amount of your business is $2 million or above. So that's just in the application. I think for most small business, that's going to be, you just check that box, certify it was less than $2 million. And again, that safe harbor rule applies where SBA has said you will not be audited or inspected or investigated. Basically, they've just kind of certified that if you borrowed less than $2 million, you're good. We assume that you are properly certified to need those funds, and you're good to go. Next, the payroll reduction exemption. So as we probably know, the guideline states that in order to qualify for forgiveness, you have to keep the same head count during that 8-week period as prior to applying for the loan or receiving the loan. So, many businesses are worried that if you lay people off and don't rehire them back, then that could eat into your forgivable amount. That could be a problem. So there's clarification. So you are required to maintain the average number of employees, but any reduction in headcount that is under the following circumstances will not count against you. So the new guidelines makes it clear that if your forgiveness amount will not be reduced for employee reductions related to one of these three things: individuals to whom the borrower has made a written offer in good faith to rehire, but the employee declined. So if you made an offer to someone to bring them back, to keep your head count where it was, and they declined the offer, then that's okay. That won't be held against you when it comes to time for applying for forgiveness. You have to be able to show that you made a written offer, so keep track of that written offer, keep those records, keep the response by the employee. Hopefully they've replied via email, or you have some sort of written documentation. I'm guessing verbal will be accepted as well, but ideally you would have written documentation they declined the offer, or at least some record in your paperwork that they declined the offer. Number 2, employees whose employment was terminated for cause. So basically, if you had someone who you had to terminate for cause, they did something they shouldn't be doing, their performance was poor, some of the reason, you had a good reason for terminating the employee, that will not be held against you. And then finally, employees who voluntarily resigned. So if employees just resigned during that time period, that will not be held against you. That's not your fault. That's something they made a choice to do. So that is helpful when thinking through kind of the headcount issue, if that's an issue for you. Next, the owner's cap issue. So this has kind of already been defined and talked about a little bit, but a lot of entrepreneurs pay themselves through owner's draw instead of payroll, especially if you're an LLC or a sole proprietor. So it kind of was a little bit tricky to calculate the payroll calculation of what you were eligible for forgiveness and paying yourself. As we've kind of heard before, it's going to be redefined and restated that your payroll costs are defined as 8 weeks of your 2019 compensation. So whatever you paid yourself or whatever your net income is in 2019, that is how you calculate your amount. And the fraction is 8 over 52. So 8 weeks out of 52, which comes out to 0.158 something or other like that. You multiply that number, 8 over 52, that fraction, times your 2019 net income. And again, that's the amount that you are eligible for forgiveness when you receive those PPP funds. So if you're paying yourself through owner's draw and not through payroll, then that's how you would calculate that. The total forgivable amount, however, is capped at $15,385 per employee. So there is a cap per person. So if you're a sole proprietor or a single member LLC, that's your cap for you, for example. But if you have employees, then the cap is that much per employee for the forgivable amount. The 75 over 25 rule, we know this already, I believe. The states that at least 75% of your forgivable amount has to be payroll. You have to be using at least that much for payroll, and then 25% can be authorized for non-payroll things. Again, those are rent and utilities, really, is the 25%. So there is a recommendation. The SBA Inspector General is recommending removing this rule, but there's been no change as of now, as of the date of this video. So that may change, but as of now it has not changed. My recommendation is just use most or all of it for payroll, and likely that's what you would want to be doing anyway, so that's probably just kind of the default for many. So that is what is in the forgiveness application. Again, you can Google PPP Forgiveness Application and you'll find it, or look for the link here as well and you can click and link to it, and that will lead you to the application. So I will continue keeping you updated as things are updated and as things are kind of released and new information comes out. But that is good news. The application is there. So if you have questions, give me a shout. You can reach out at elevationfinancial.com and feel free to book a money session if you have questions. Thanks. Have a great day.